Let's tell you about this now. The ANC NEC will today receive the Integrity Commission's report on Phala Phala and get reports from the Acting Secretary General on branch nominations. This is the first NEC being held in person since the end of the lockdown, and it's meant to finalize preparations for the national conference. Govan Whittles is in Nasrec for us. That's in Johannesburg, and he joins us now for the very latest. I see behind you, Govan, the stage is set, but what do we know about the kind of debates that are happening or will be happening there?
Welcome to Nasrec. It's a very familiar venue. It's one that they've used for the policy conference, and this is where we expect a briefing from the Acting Secretary General, Paul Mashatile. The kind of debates that will dominate here will not only be on the state of readiness of the ANC to hold its conference. At one point, Paul Mashatile confirming to Gauteng delegates that it was going to happen despite concerns that not enough branches were going to hold their BGMs. But there are, of course, other important organizational reports and reports from the Integrity Commission on the Phala Phala saga. There's also going to be reports on the nominations themselves. They started opening the envelopes yesterday. And then the Electoral Commission will start receiving disclosures of financial resources being used by the candidates to run their campaigns. That's hugely interesting. It's one of the new requirements by the Electoral Commission, and it's something that the candidates will have to comply with if they want to remain eligible to contest at the conference. Then there's another element here. That's the one of the Youth League and its decision to take decisions to nominate leaders after not consulting the branches. Remember that the Electoral Commission this year required any of the leagues to submit their nominations and didn't place on them the requirement to actually consult with the branches of the league. So the NYTT of the Youth League wasn't the only league that decided on leaders without consulting branches. The Women's League did the same thing. The Veterans League did the same thing. And that's surely going to be a debate in the NEC. At least that's what Newzroom Afrika understands from some of the NEC members who are taking part here. The Youth League anticipating to be wrapped over the knuckles over the public spat that emerged in its leadership over the people that they actually nominated. Those are some of the more controversial issues. Newzroom Afrika has spoken to a few ANC leaders. They've given us a glimpse of the kind of issues that they expect to dominate this NEC meeting. Let's begin with Tony Yengeni. He's a proponent of the so-called RET faction. He's someone who's very outspoken in his criticism of President Cyril Ramaphosa, and we spoke to him a little earlier about what the significance and important issues are here at this NEC meeting and what his views are on it. Let's take a look.
Yes, it has been raised in the NEC a number of times, and the President has responded to say this matter is under investigation by state organs. So let us leave it at that. But of course, the Integrity Committee is not a state organ. It's an organ of the African National Congress. When they table that report before us about Phala Phala, we shall debate and discuss that report and come to a conclusion.
Excited that we have been able to have 9 provincial conferences. We have had regional conferences. Of course, there are serious policy issues that are important. We can't select the issue of Phala Phala. We can't select the issue of step aside outside of the broader policy-related matters. What every meeting of the ANC should look at is progress around the implementation of the mandate that we have been given.
Well, that's Nomvula Mokonyane and Tony Yengeni that was speaking to Newzroom Afrika a short while ago, just before the start of that NEC meeting, raising a few other issues, such as anticipating some pushback for her remarks that this is the weakest ANC NEC in its history. But we do know as well that this NEC is hugely important because it will give a clearer indication of the state of the organization. Somewhat of a test for the Acting Secretary General, Paul Mashatile, who's been overseeing the nominations process, but also the verification of the branches using the new electronic membership system. Paul Mashatile telling Newzroom Afrika a while ago that they expect about 3,900 branches to take part in the conference. And of course, we know that there is an audit committee which is headed by the head of elections for the ANC. That would be Fikile Mbalula, aspirant Secretary General, and Mvula Mokonyane, aspirant Deputy Secretary General, who've been conducting audits on whether these branch meetings were in fact legitimate. They'd usually take a pool of about 5% of each of the branches in a region to check if they were legitimate. Paul Mashatile telling Newzroom Afrika, so far they haven't picked up any significant problems in terms of fraud, which was a concern that since they were introducing a new electronic system. But in a little while, we'll hear from Paul Mashatile himself, who will conduct a briefing at this venue. This is where they've placed the media, so unfortunately, we didn't get a glimpse of the leadership that is in the conference and the photo opportunity, which is usually the norm here.
Govan, we've also heard from the convener of the Free State Interim Provincial Committee. He said something about Ace Magashule. What did he tell you, rather?
Yeah, that's Ulysses Dukwana. He's the convener of the IPC in the Free State, saying that he met with Ace Magashule 3 weeks ago. That's what he told Newzroom Afrika. He says that he tried to convince him to subject himself to the branch processes or the disciplinary processes of the ANC. Confirming Ace Magashule has been canvassing support among ANC branches in the Free State, stating his intention to contest for leadership and obviously defy or at least contest the guidelines that have been set out by the National Elections Commission of the ANC, which prevent him from contesting because he's been charged with fraud and corruption charges in the Bloemfontein High Court. Ace Magashule believing that the branches can still overturn that decision. Ulysses Dukwana holding a different view, in his words saying that the horse has bolted and it's too late for him to try and launch a contest at the conference. But we've seen attempts in the past for people to make a challenge to leadership. Famously in 2012, Julius Malema's attempt to have his expulsion from the ANC or his disciplinary by the ANC reviewed at the conference was rejected when conference set. And this time, at least the NEC members here, a few of them are telling Newzroom Afrika, Ace Magashule will attempt to have the same thing happen, to raise his case from the floor at conference and hopefully get him onto the ballot so he can contest for leadership. That, of course, would mean a huge victory for the RET, but at this point, it doesn't look likely to happen.
Govan, Whittles, thank you very much for that update. We'll come back to you as soon as that briefing gets underway.